They say it's good to be nice, to be agreeable, polite, to smile even when it hurts, to say yes when your soul is quietly begging for a no. And so you did. You learned how to shrink your needs, to make room for everyone else's comfort. You became the peacekeeper, the fixer, the one who never makes a fuss. But now you lie awake at night, not because someone hurt you, but because you let them. Again, you're tired, not just in your body, but in your bones. Tired of pretending. Tired of being the one who always bends but never breaks. Tired of swallowing your truth just to keep the peace. You were taught that being nice makes you good, but no one told you that it can also make you invisible. Because here's the brutal truth. Chronic niceness isn't always kindness. Sometimes it's self-erasure dressed up as virtue. A survival tactic, not a moral compass. Behind that soft voice and polite nods, there may be a person screaming to be seen, to be real, to finally stop earning love and start living it. So before you smile through another silent heartbreak, pause. Ask yourself, is this kindness or fear? Because not all masks are made of plastic. Some are made of smiles. This video isn't an invitation to become selfish. It's not a manifesto for rudeness or cruelty. It's a mirror held up to those of us who were told that niceness is the highest form of goodness. And somewhere along the way we lost ourselves. You see, no one chooses to live behind a mask for no reason. There's always a story. Maybe as a child, you were praised when you stayed quiet and scolded when you spoke up. Maybe you learned that love had to be earned by being easy, helpful, unproblematic. Or maybe you just noticed that the world responds better to smiles than to boundaries. And so you adapted, not because you're weak, but because you're human. You became nice and so you could stay safe. But now, years later, that same niceness that once protected you is starting to suffocate you, because there's a difference between being kind and being agreeable. There's a difference between compassion and self-abandonment. Psychologists call it fawning, the trauma response where you appease others to avoid conflict, rejection, or abandonment. Philosophers have another word, self-denial, the quiet betrayal of the self in the name of being good. But goodness without truth is just performance. And if your niceness is rooted in guilt, fear, or a desperate hunger to be accepted, then it's not really love you're giving. It's a transaction, a silent deal. I'll be what you want if you just don't leave. This video is for every person who's ever choked down their no, who's ever smiled through pain, who's ever confused pleasing people with being valuable. It's time to peel back the mask, to explore the hidden psychology behind chronic niceness, to challenge what you were taught, and to finally ask, what does it really mean to be good? Because if being nice is costing you your peace, your truth, your voice, then maybe it's too expensive. Let's go back, not just to your childhood, but deeper, to the root of what shaped your idea of goodness, because no one is born desperate to please. We become that way, carefully, slowly, subtly, trained by family, culture, school, even religion, to believe that being nice is not just a trait, but a requirement to be loved. The psychology, where it all begins. As children, our survival depends on the approval of others. If you were rewarded for being helpful, quiet, and agreeable, you learned quickly, being nice keeps me safe. But the child who expresses anger, who says no, who disrupts peace to protect their truth, they are often labeled as difficult, rude, or ungrateful. And so little by little, you edited yourself. You smiled instead of questioned. You apologized when you weren't wrong. You offered silence in place of truth, all to stay in the warmth of acceptance. That's not weakness, that's adaptation. It's called fawning, and it's as real a trauma response as fight or flight. It's the nervous system's way of saying, please like me, please don't leave me, I'll become whatever you need me to be. The philosophy, a deeper examination. Long before psychology gave it a name, philosophers saw it for what it was, a distortion of virtue. Nietzsche warned against what he called slave morality, a system of values created by the oppressed, where meekness, submission, and suffering were rebranded as moral superiority. To Nietzsche, this wasn't true goodness. It was the disguised resentment of those too powerless to act freely. A way to cope with weakness, by calling it virtue. He wasn't glorifying cruelty. He was warning us. When we define good as whatever makes others comfortable, we lose ourselves. We turn virtue into performance, morality into martyrdom, and self-worth into a popularity contest. The cultural pressure. In many societies, especially for women, kindness isn't just encouraged, it's demanded. You're taught to be soft, gentle, nurturing, to never raise your voice, to make sure everyone else is okay, even if you're falling apart. And men aren't spared either. They're taught to suppress vulnerability, to be agreeable team players, to never appear difficult. In both cases, niceness becomes a prison, a role you play, a version of you that's palatable, but not real. So the question isn't, should I stop being nice? The question is deeper. Where is my niceness coming from? Is it a true expression of your values, rooted in love, empathy, and inner strength? Or is it a mask, worn out of fear, guilt, or a desperate need for approval? Because when your niceness comes at the cost of your authenticity, you're not being kind, you're disappearing. You were never meant to be agreeable at the cost of your soul. You were meant to be real, and that is where true goodness lives. Now that we've uncovered where this pattern of chronic niceness begins, it's time to explore what it does to you, silently over time. Because this isn't just a personality trait, it's a slow erosion of self. And the cost? It doesn't always scream, it whispers, through burnout, resentment, confusion, and emotional emptiness. Let's break it down. 1. Loss of boundaries. I don't want to upset them. It's not a big deal, I'll just handle it. I'll say yes, I always do. Sound familiar? Chronic niceness often begins with the inability or fear of setting boundaries. You say yes not out of excitement but obligation. You avoid no like it's a sin. You convince yourself that you're being kind, but inside there's a quiet bitterness building. Because every time you say yes to something that drains you, you're saying no to yourself. Over time, your inner lines blur. What do you want? What do you need? You're not even sure anymore. You've been so busy pleasing others, you forgot how to listen to your own voice. 2. Emotional suppression. There's a quiet violence in always being nice, because to be perpetually pleasant, you must bury your anger, your sadness, your frustration, your truth. And emotions don't die just because you ignore them. They rot. They show up as anxiety, as resentment, as emotional numbness. You may find yourself smiling on the outside, but feeling flat on the inside, disconnected from joy, from passion, from everything. That's not kindness, that's emotional starvation. And it leaves a mark. 3. Inauthentic relationships. When you're always agreeable, you're easy to love, but hard to truly know. Because if you're not showing your full self, your disagreements, your boundaries, your real opinions, then what people love isn't you. It's your performance. Relationships become lopsided. You give more, you bend more, you suppress more, and you wonder why they never quite see you. The truth is, you never gave them the chance. Authentic connection requires friction. It needs honesty, even discomfort, and when you hide those things behind a curtain of niceness, you may feel liked, but never truly seen. 4. Exploitation and burnout. Here's something hard to admit. The world doesn't always reward kindness. Sometimes it uses it. Bosses assign more work to the employee who never says no. Partners rely on the giver who never asks for anything in return. Friends call only when they need something because they know you'll say yes. And if you're not careful, your niceness becomes your weakness. Not because kindness is weak, but because when it's rooted in fear, it turns into self-sacrifice. You run on empty, and you call it loyalty. But burnout isn't proof of love. It's proof of imbalance. And one day, your body will say no for you, through exhaustion, sickness, or breakdown. 5. Fear-based identity. This may be the deepest cut of all. Many people aren't nice because they want to be. They're nice because they have to be. Because somewhere deep down they believe, if I stop being agreeable, I'll be rejected. If I disappoint someone, I'll lose their love. If I'm not useful, I'm not worthy. This isn't about morality anymore. It's about survival. Niceness becomes a strategy, a way to secure belonging. But here's the brutal irony. In trying so hard to be lovable, you abandon the one person who needs your love the most, you. 6. The mask of virtue. Philosophically, this is where the deepest distortion lies. You convince yourself that you're being moral, that niceness equals goodness, that suppressing your needs is somehow holy. But real virtue is never dishonest. It doesn't erase the self, it expands it. There's nothing noble about becoming invisible. There's nothing righteous about self-betrayal. True kindness includes you, and if it doesn't, it's not kindness, it's martyrdom. 7. The identity crisis. Eventually, the cost becomes too heavy. You hit a wall. You can't keep smiling. You can't keep bending. You don't even know who you are anymore. And this is the moment, the breaking point that can become a beginning. Because sometimes falling apart is how you finally come home to yourself. Let this sink in. Every forced smile teaches you to lie. Every fake yes takes you further from your truth. Every unspoken need becomes a quiet wound. And over time, your soul starts to wonder, if I'm always being who they want me to be, who am I really? That's the hidden cost. Not just your time, not just your energy, but yourself. Let's move from theory to reality, because the cost of chronic niceness doesn't just exist in textbooks or therapy rooms. It lives in real people, in real pain, in the small, invisible sacrifices made every single day. You might recognize yourself in these stories, and if you do, you're not alone. 1. The office star who burned out silently. Sonia was the perfect employee. Always early, never complained. Took on every task, even the ones no one wanted. If a co-worker missed a deadline, she quietly stayed late to fix it. If her boss made an unreasonable request, she smiled and said, "Of course." Her co-workers praised her. Her manager called her a team player. But what no one saw were the migraines. The tears in the office bathroom, the late nights spent wondering why her efforts never turned into promotions, only more expectations. One evening, after a 14-hour day and zero recognition, she came home, dropped her bag, and just stood in the hallway, frozen, empty. Her body was at work, but her soul had left the building long ago. Sonia wasn't just tired, she was invisible, because her niceness had become her cage. 2. The relationship that felt perfect until it didn't mark was the ideal boyfriend. Supportive, loyal, easygoing. When his partner picked the restaurant, the vacation, even the life decisions, he nodded and said, "Whatever makes you happy." He didn't want to rock the boat, didn't want to argue, didn't want to be difficult. But over time, something strange began to happen. The more agreeable he became, the more distant his partner felt. Until one day, she ended it. "It's like you're not really here," she said. "I don't know what you want. I don't even know who you are." And that's when it hit him. In trying to be everything she wanted, he became nothing at all. 3. The dutiful son who lost himself. Ravi always put his family first. He helped with bills, stayed home instead of studying abroad, sacrificed relationships, dreams, even his mental health, all to keep things together. When his mother was sick, he was there. When his siblings needed help, he was there. When anyone asked him for anything, the answer was always yes. Years passed. He grew quieter, tired, detached. Then, one evening during a family dinner, he finally said something small, just a gentle boundary. "I'm feeling exhausted. I think I need some space." The room went cold. "What's wrong with you?" his uncle snapped. "We all have problems." You're just being selfish. And in that moment, Ravi realized they weren't used to him having needs, only being useful. He wasn't a person to them. He was a function, a nice one, but still not real. 4. The girl who couldn't say. No, Leah was the sweet one. Everyone said it. From childhood through adulthood, friends called her when they were in crisis. Co-workers leaned on her. Even strangers seemed to open up to her without asking, and she listened. She helped. She smiled. But inside, she was drowning. Every time she declined a plan, guilt consumed her. Every time she asserted herself, anxiety bloomed in her chest. Every time she even thought about taking a break, a voice in her head whispered, "They'll think you're selfish. You'll lose them." One day, she skipped a doctor's appointment, again, just to help someone move. And while lifting a box, her back gave out. That injury healed. But the deeper pain, the belief that her worth was tied to her niceness, that would take much longer. Can you see yourself in any of them? Have you been the helper who's never helped in return? The partner who disappears to keep the peace? The child who became the parent in every room? The friend who's always there, but never truly felt? These aren't rare stories. They're everywhere. They're you. They're me. They're the silent epidemic of self-erasure that lives under the label of nice. And the scariest part? The world often applauds you for it, until you collapse. You don't have to be everything for everyone. You don't have to trade your truth for belonging. You don't have to suffer to be good. It's okay to be kind, but not if it costs you you. So where do we go from here? How do we begin to untangle the idea that being good means being agreeable, that love means self-sacrifice, and that worth comes from being useful? Let's begin with some truths. Truths that are difficult, but freeing. 1. Being kind is not the same as being nice. Let's draw the line clearly. Kindness is a conscious choice. Niceness is often a coping mechanism. Kindness is rooted in strength. It says, "I see you and I choose to care." But it also says, "I see me and I choose to protect myself." Niceness, on the other hand, often comes from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being unloved unless we perform. Kindness honors truth. Niceness avoids truth. So ask yourself, the next time you smile, agree, or offer help, is this kindness, or is this fear pretending to be good? 2. Your no is sacred. Every yes you give out of guilt is a quiet betrayal of yourself. Boundaries are not walls, they're doors that you choose when to open and when to close. Start small. Say no to things that feel heavy. Say, "I need time," instead of instantly replying. Say, "I'm not available." And don't explain. You are not required to justify your limits to people who benefit from you having none. And remember, saying no to others is saying yes to yourself. 3. Anger is not the enemy. It's a signal. Nice people often fear their own anger. They've been taught it's dangerous, shameful, or unspiritual. But anger is not evil. It's a messenger. It rises when your boundaries are crossed, when your needs are unmet, when your soul is shouting, "This is not okay." Instead of suppressing it, listen to it. Sit with it. Let it guide you back to the place where your voice was silenced. Your anger isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something to understand. 4. Discomfort. Danger. A hard truth for recovering people-pleasers. Feeling uncomfortable doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Sometimes discomfort is the exact sign that you're finally doing something different, something honest. Speaking up may make your heart race. Saying no might make you feel guilty. Setting boundaries might make people push back. But that doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're growing. Growth always feels awkward at first. Let it. 5. Love that requires your disappearance is not love. If someone only accepts you when you're easy, quiet, agreeable, selfless, they don't love you. They love the version of you that doesn't make them uncomfortable. Real love includes your edges. It respects your no's, it honors your humanity. And if you've built your life, your relationships, or your identity around the fear of being rejected for who you are, you're not in connection. You're in compliance. You don't need to disappear to be loved. You only need to be real. 6. Rewrite the story. Ask yourself, where did I learn that being nice is the only way to be safe? Who taught me that my needs are less important than others? When did I start believing that love had to be earned? And then choose a new script, a script where your voice matters, where your truth is valid, where your worth is not based on how small you can make yourself for others' comfort. You are not here to perform, you are here to live. 7. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to disappoint people, to be misunderstood, to say this doesn't work for me. You are allowed to be messy, to be learning, to be enough even when you're not perfect. Your worth is not measured by how convenient you are to others. It's measured by how honestly you show up for yourself. The world doesn't need more polite ghosts. It needs real people. People who are brave enough to say, this is who I am and I matter too. So if you've been hiding behind a smile, if you've been pleasing others just to feel safe, if you've been vanishing in the name of virtue, it's time to come home to your voice, to your boundaries, to your truth. Because you are not the problem. The story you were given was. If something stirred inside you during this video, don't brush it off. That stillness you felt, that lump in your throat, that quiet ache when you saw your story reflected on the screen, that wasn't just content. That was your soul responding. Because somewhere deep down you've known for a long time that being nice has come at a cost. And you've paid it, quietly, bravely, endlessly. But it doesn't have to stay this way. This is your invitation. Not to stop caring, but to include yourself in the care. Not to harden your heart, but to soften toward your own truth. Not to reject kindness, but to reimagine it, with boundaries, with honesty, with self-respect. You don't need to fix everything today. You don't need to have your whole life figured out. But maybe you start with one small, honest action. Say no when you mean no. Pause before you say yes. Tell someone how you really feel. Or simply sit with the discomfort of choosing yourself, even when it's unfamiliar. You've been performing for long enough, being the glue, being the helper, being the peacekeeper. Now it's time to be something else, real. Let the world adjust to the sound of your truth. Let love find you when you're no longer begging for it. Let peace come, not from approval, but from alignment. You were never meant to be a ghost in your own life, so if this video found you in a moment of exhaustion, confusion, or silent heartbreak, take it as a sign. You're not breaking down, you're waking up. And now, a gentle challenge. This week, do one brave thing that honors your truth. Say the thing. Set the line. Pause before the reflexive yes. Then come back here and tell us in the comments what you did. Let's not just watch transformation. Let's live it. And if this spoke to you, truly spoke to you, leave a in the comments. Share this with one person who always puts themselves last. You might just save a life.